All right, so we are doing our web show Overtime with Pastor Scott here today on this Friday-ish day. It's really a Thursday. We're recording this, but we're saying it's Friday here on the web show. But hey, we have been talking over the last 2 weeks about this new series called I Can See or I Want to See. And the whole idea behind this came from Mark 10:46-52, where this guy named Bartimaeus is not able to see, but he is having this moment where Jesus is walking by with a great multitude of people and his disciples. And in the midst of that, what happens is that this Bartimaeus, this guy who has been blind, says, "Hey, Jesus," and yells out to Jesus this moment of, maybe read it for us real quick here so we get the whole picture. And then he came to Jericho, and he was leaving Jericho with his disciples, talking about Jesus, and a great crowd. Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting on the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and said, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent or be quiet. But he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And that's as far as we've gotten in the whole story. As a teenager, is it easy to express your faith and trust in God?
It's not. I like to call it teen pride. Like,
Okay.
it's something we develop, and we might not even notice it, but it starts becoming our daily kind of thing. Like, I don't need to ask a question. Like, I can do it on my own, and I don't need to share my feelings because I'll keep it inside and won't bother anybody by it. So I feel like that it's really hard to share feelings out to anybody, really, unless
Yeah.
it's someone that's close to you. So yeah.
Anyone else have thoughts on that? Is it hard for a teenager to have their faith, to actively apply or express their faith and trust in God?
I feel like for me, it's hard because like we have like that pressure of like pressure others are gonna say or like what the action's gonna be, because like even though we go to a Christian school, like it's still hard because a lot of the people in our school aren't like believers and stuff like that, and like trying to apply that and like trying to make a change is pretty hard, and it takes like a lot of courage to do that. So I feel like it's definitely hard to do that.
Yeah. Would you agree on that, Dallas?
I would definitely agree and personally relate to that because I kind of get nervous whenever I'm like the only person going against the crowd, and like I have to remember that there's a difference between having like a personal relationship with God and expressing that and showing that, because you could be like a really strong Christian but no one would know because you don't stand up whenever they're saying something wrong.
Yeah.
So let's go off of that for a second, Dallas, because here's the thing: for all of us in here, we all can answer this and talk about this, but as a teenager, do you guys feel like you're alone in the Christian walk sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you feel like, here's Wes last night, and then I preached last week about crying out. He talked about pressing in, leaning in. So the whole idea, sometimes it's hard to express. It is hard to express our faith and trust in God because we feel like we're in this thing alone, right?
Yeah.
And why do you think we feel like that sometimes?
Well, like for me, like why I feel like that sometimes we're alone, because like I know like some of my friends and stuff like that, and like most of the time when I surround myself, like the only time I'm like surrounding myself like around with other believers and stuff like that is like at church and like Sunday school and stuff like that. And like I feel like I'm the one that's like who actually believes in God and stuff like that, and it's kind of hard to be like, oh, like when your friends aren't like believers and stuff like that, that's kind of hard because you can't really, you can talk to them, but they're not really believers, if you know what I'm saying.
No, exactly right. And our student ministry is centered on our students doing ministry with each other. So here right now, parents and students are watching this, right? On this Friday, they're watching this whole web show that we're doing right now, and this whole Overtime with Pastor Scott. But here's the thing that I guess we're trying to say to them is, look, hey, it is important to realize that you're not alone in your Christian walk, that Jesus is telling us, hey, put your trust in me, right? Express your faith, call out to me, right? That's what he's saying to us. And one of the things that Wes said last night is this, it says, tell God how you really feel. And I think sometimes we're afraid to tell God how we really feel. Like, hey, God, I feel distant from you. Hey, God, I know you're not the one moving. I know I'm the one that moved. I know that sometimes I've chosen my friends over you, God. And I in this battle that I'm going through in my Christian walk, Jesus, I need you, right? That's really, don't we need to say that to each other, though? Like, don't we need to say that to ourselves, but also to our fellow students?
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think it's extremely important to express the kind of emotions that we have to other people, because it makes us feel better when you do. And if it's hard to admit it, it's just better to here, take it.
yeah, I feel like that, like, because we can't like see or like, like hear him or feel God, like we choose to not express him. But like if we like cry out and tell God how we feel, I mean, he's there. It's just that like God works in like mysterious ways. So, like it's all a part of his plan, even though he doesn't feel like he's there for us. But like, even though we don't feel it, like he's still there. So, I mean, I just feel like we need to cry out and like tell God like how we feel and stuff, because he's there. It's just that, he's working and stuff.
Now, here's kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but last night, Wes shared with us, or a few nights ago, Wes shared with us that he said this, what are you putting your faith in? So let me ask you this question. What do teenagers put their faith in?
I feel like we put our faith in like, for like, let me say non-believers and stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes they put their faith in like, let me say like what others people think about them, like usually like mostly like most teenagers believe like what people say about them is like, what how do I rephrase it? Okay, so I'm saying like I feel like teenagers like us and stuff like that, we really base our like faith and stuff off of what other people think about us and stuff, which I mean I do it sometimes too, like, oh, is what people say about me really true and stuff like that, or like, what others' opinions we have like faith in and stuff, or people like around us, like celebrities and stuff like that.
That's good. What else do you guys think we put our faith in? Our teenagers put their faith in?
I think we can put our faith in how do I say this? Almost like ourselves. I know it's like a really weird thing to say, but when I think about other teenagers and where they put their faith, I think of the pride that we naturally have, like going back to the whole pride thing and saying, "Oh, I can handle my relationship with God myself. I don't need other people to guide me through the right lanes, and I can take the bumpy side of the road. I can do it. It's easy." But yeah, I think our self-esteem and pride have a really large factor into our walk with God.
Yeah, I agree.
Dallas, are you going to add something there?
I know personally, I put my faith in like what Devin was saying and what I do, and especially like academics. And it's just hard for me sometimes because I feel like if I don't do well in something, that defines me as a person. And I think that a lot of teenagers can relate to that, not even just in academics, but sports too.
Yeah, I think sports and academics are what we sometimes put our faith in, and because that's something we see results from, and that sometimes in our faith we don't see instant results of something, of putting our trust in God, right? So we're going through a financial issue, going through a family issue, a personal issue, right? And we don't see the results instantly, so it's hard for us sometimes to express our faith or trust because of that. So, I mean, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
And so here's the final thing. So what was shared with us at the end of Wes's message on this whole pressing in and in this midst of I can see now or I want to see now is this, was he said it's time for us to draw closer to God. So we have students and parents watching this right now. So if each of you just take a moment and just say, hey, this is how you can draw closer to God, right? This is that moment of students ministering other students. What would you say, hey, this is how you can draw closer to God?
For me, I think like I know we all have like virtual school and stuff like that, like setting a time like in the morning, night, like especially like just dedicated to like devotions or maybe like listening to music. Like for me, it's basically listening to like ZAA3 or like, you know, all these Christian singers, just like, you know, listen to it like for like a good like 10 minutes, you know, just a dedicated time for God, and you know, maybe read some verses and stuff like that. Like on our phones and stuff, like we have good like technology and stuff, you know, they like on the Bible app, they set like reminders and stuff like that. Like, oh, time to read your verse for the day or stuff like that. Like that's what I do.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say invite people to your life group, because now it's easier than ever. Because I know it's hard to go up to a person and say, hey, you wanna go to church with me? Like I understand it. I've tried it. I've got rejected a lot. It's not fun. But now you can just send them a text and be like, hey, you should join the Zoom meeting. We're in life group. It only takes like 10 minutes, and you're free to go back to whatever you were doing. So I would say that's how I would want to reach out to more people than I normally do on foot or in person.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Dallas?
I would probably say kind of a mixture of what Yardis and Devin both said. Just remember to take advantage of the extra time you have. And a lot of people, their excuse before all this started for not having a quiet time and not praying was, oh, I'm too busy. And like online school does keep you busy, but you can get up later, or now could, instead of getting up at 8 or 9, you could get up at 8:30 or 7:30 and read your Bible.
It's good. I mean, I think we're at that moment now where it's time for our students to draw closer to God. And I was talking to someone earlier today, and I said that momentum has been happening in our ministry really since Overflow Summer Camp last summer. But here we are now. I mean, we're almost a year later since that happened, and we saw all these students give their lives to Christ. But this summer, you know, March hit, and then everything just kind of went. And so now it's a matter of like, you know, there's moments of frustration of like, I want everything the way it's supposed to be. I want everything back. But to be honest, I think that God has really brought us, you know, has worked in this. Not that he brought this upon us, but I think he's worked in this to bring us as a student ministry back to him by getting his word and by really seeking him. And I think it's a chance for us to dive deeper in a Christian walk. And as you guys all were saying, you know, digitally learning now, but that does not keep you from spending time with God. And if anything, you have more time now to spend with God than you did before, with no sports. And really, I mean, you're watching the same things on TV now because everything's like repeating. So, well, hey, I appreciate everyone out here just for this conversation we had today. And students, I would just tell you, keep subscribing to the Overtime web show. Here is a great way for you to stay connected to what's happening here in our student ministry. And we're also going to just tell you, hey, all 4 of us are saying, hey, join us in Life Group. The link is in our bio on our Instagram. It's the link tree thing. You just click and go right there and join us at Life Groups. And the same thing is for midweek. Love to have you join us next week as we continue in our Mark 10, 46-52, as we kind of move on to the next part 3 of that series. So, all right, students, appreciate you guys watching, and all of us here at Overtime with Pastor Scott. We're thankful that you guys have joined us today. You guys have a great day.